So we did a thing.
But you're never going to see it.
Leave it to a monkey moon where we recorded damn near a 2 hour
It was
episode
so good.
and it just didn't even record. And then so here we are on a rooster day,
Yeah.
getting it right.
Yeah, we probably talk too much anyway. Yeah.
There was a lot of tangent
There
on
was a
that
lot
one.
of tangents.
Yeah, we were talking about,
Naturally, so many tangents.
yeah.
This is better now. We have full bellies. That's very pig. we just we just had dinner. We're like, oh yeah, okay. Now we can
Yeah.
come in and talk about the pig.
You know, it's appropriate. Everything's right. And so we are enjoying some 7572 2014 ginseng fragrance. I just threw a whole bunch of jargon numbers at you. It doesn't make any sense to most of you, but those of you that are into tea, that's what we're drinking right now. All right, Pig Moon.
Pig moon. Whoop whoop. Yeah, man. So I'm a double pig. Turns out, which in this particular system of astrology is so backing up even more. What we're talking about is the cosmology, the Tongshu. The Tongshu itself is a calendrical astrology, which is the preeminent form of astrology in Chinese history. So much more concerned with what to do, where to go, and when than they were about like, what's going to happen to you, what's going to happen to me. But at some point in time, they did develop a form of personal fate calculation in the form of Zhuidoshu, pole star astrology. And in that, we use the same data of the Tongshu to extract a chart, like to calculate fate. And in that chart, using the 4 pillars, the hour, day, month, and year, to basically create a character, and that character has a certain set of qualities that then engages its fate. So the hour and the year are the most important of the 4 pillars, right, in the construction of the chi character. And I say that this is the reason why I can say I'm a double pig, because I was born in an hour of the pig in the year of the pig. So, and I remember like when I in studying with Ming, and I got my chart saw my chart for the first time, and I went, oh, okay,
That's why.
oh, and I went up to Ming, and I'm like, I just really need to let you know, like, he's like, what's up? I'm like, I'm a double pig. He's like, oh, congratulations. And I went, oh, thank you. And there was just immediate kind of, because he was a pig as well. There was this immediate kind of like joyfulness, that just sort of came out of the recognition that like, hey, great for you. I'm like, I know. And like, but I didn't really even know what I was like excited about. I just knew that like when you said that, it just sort of, there was a stimulation in me that made sense. Like, yeah, no, totally. Double pig is awesome. Like that. That was the vibe. And so that hasn't changed. Like, it's still pretty happy about it.
Thank you for that, because that reminds me, yeah, Ming is a pig. And also my teacher, my shufu in Wudang is also, yeah, pig.
Same year?
No, he's a cycle over me. He's not that much older than me. Oh my goodness. And, those of you that have been here to have tea, you know that my tea pet is a pig that blows bubbles.
Pet is a pig.
And specifically
just chilling in the water.
Yeah.
Hanging out. Yeah, so we're all just chilling in the water. So that's the idea behind the 10th moon.
Winter. Huh?
So we can talk about this moon as a 10th moon because it is in the cycle of 12. The pig is the 10th, appears in the as the 10th moon in the cycle of 12. And it represents very specifically the first moon of winter. So it is the kind of the official beginning of winter, and this kind of expansion of yin, seasonal yin, because the 10th moon is also, just checking all the boxes and describing where we are, the time where heaven and earth separate. Right. So we've had this kind of engagement, right, all through the year that starts in the spring. Heaven and earth resume their partnership. and then they do all this stuff together, and then they depart. So then they separate, and the pig moon is the moon where they separate.
Wow, that reminds me of, Abrahamic cosmology, where God created the heavens and the earth and separated the waters from the waters. That's fascinating to me, the correlation.
Yeah,
Of that in 10th moon.
similar story.
Yeah, very similar story.
Right.
Huh.
So in the cycle of time, you have this kind of period where heaven departs and earth sinks, essentially, because what in addition to that, with heaven departing, you have the dragons. In this cosmology, have like gone up into the alpine lakes to frolic, right, and play, and they're just kind of getting down, having a vacation, and then the lake freezes over and traps them. So there's a lot, because the Chinese culture is so shaped by its relationship to rivers, that was understood as a very significant event, because up in the source of the rivers where the dragons went to play is where they got locked. And when spring comes, you had huge shamanic tradition about unlocking the dragons from the lakes, so they may like bring spring again, bring change, bring dynamism back to the environment, right? So dragons in this particular case represent this kind of capacity for things to move forward or change, that is emblematic of, spring, or when heaven and earth are united in like very strong dialogue. So now the dragons are gone, heaven and earth is separated, and what do we have? Yeah. That's really what the 10th moon is about, is this kind of, what's our environment look like now that those two things have happened. And the first thing that happens is a cold wind, what they say, a cold wind, like sweeps through the environment and drives downward. And it goes into bodies, all bodies. This wind penetrates all bodies to slow them down and to cause stagnation. So this is a freezing of water, right? The ice comes, like begins to happen. The ground hardens, but the wind doesn't discriminate. It goes into anybody it can find. So this is where you get like yin conditions of chronic illnesses. Wind invasion, was big in, right now we're doing this as post full moon. The full moon has ended, but for the 2 weeks up into the full moon, the wind was causing pretty serious conditions.
Oh yeah, we were down in LA for Disneyland, and there was a legit windstorm, and a lot of the rides even were closed at Disneyland because of the wind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Good tea. It's what we're gesturing at. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is so the idea is that like you should be staying out of that wind and continue to stay out of that wind. You should not be like trying to strengthen yourself in opposition to the wind and create this kind of, that's in this kind of martial arts context, like this is where you should be out in the cold,
Guilty.
practicing. And so this from Ming calls it, it's the paragon, it's the height of foolishness, it's like complete.
It's not exposure, it's conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah. So what it is squandering, right? Like we are squandering our chi when we do that, because when yin has arrived and is developing and it is accomplished, meaning there's no more yang qi in the environment, it's been buried. So yin has buried yang. So that's when winter arrives like this, when yin, seasonal yin, has buried yang, and it's free to just open up and develop. And the days get shorter, the light gets shorter, days get colder. There is this kind of withdrawal and retreat is appropriate,
Now, I'm a dog hour, so I'm loyal to my teacher, but I'm also a monkey. And so there's a bit of devil's advocate in me. And so, yes, I've trained on the mountains, and in winter, we trained outside.
Yeah.
And there was an attribute to that, and there was a quality to that. And
that's what youth is for.
Yeah. And but then the other side of me now, having made it through that conditioning, now there's a Wim Hof. Now and I won't even say now, there's a Tubo practice in Tibet And Ming is hip to the Bun practices, and they go out scantily clad and douse themselves in water and expose themselves to harsh, horribly harsh conditions.
Right.
Way worse than any Bay Area cold, right?
And I think that that's actually in alignment with the year-long practice of actually living there. So if you and I went there and we tried to do that,
foolish,
we'd be dead, you know, like.
And then, so to my point, to some people it's exposure, to others it's conditioning,
right? You know, and I think that has a lot to do with like your relationship to the environment already, of course. Yeah. So if you're raised on wudang, then you're like, yeah, you are walking around barefoot most of the year unless the snow is too deep. You know, then you need to put on boots, right? So we're very flexible in that way. And it does bring up this point about the pig moon, which is, you know, the advice is always like scale back, retreat, retreat, retreat. Like your window of activity is shrinking, rapidly shrinking. You should be sleeping more. You know, you should be focusing on your quality of sleep, and in particular, you know, like looking to dream. You know, because in this particular cosmology, dream practice is just as vibrant as a ritual as anything else, you know, that's done. So this is the time where you have this kind of activation, you know, in these watery moons, because there is this liminal quality that comes about. The dead come close. This is the idea. Because you do have this separation and all this space for yin to develop. And what yin is a kind of medium, you know, for all these sorts of interconnection to make themselves known. So it's like very obvious interconnections. It's kind of like the stars in the sky during the day. They're still there, right? But because the sun's out, we can't see it. But as soon as the sun goes away, oh, so beautiful. Like all those stars have always been there. Right. So as yang has retreated from the environment and we have this pervasive yin, the spaciousness of yin, then it's kind of what's available is the opportunity to see all the stars, you know, in our environment, in our lives. And that's like our living relationships, but also our non-living relationships are very present. So it's kind of a shamanic time.
I'm laughing because it's one of my favorite koans. My mom had joined a Buddhist group, and she would go to these Dharma studies, and their professor stumped them with that question. It's like, are there more stars at night or in the day? No one in her class got it right.
Interesting.
And then so she thought to ask me, and I was like, yeah, same. And she, oh, my son's in like, Buddha. Like, how did you know?
Yeah. So it's obviously there's a lot of joy, right? And joy in the 10th moon is this is kind of an esoteric point. It might take me a minute, but it's one of the things, like all the stuff that I could be saying. The one thing that I think is most interesting to talk about in the 10th moon, because we just basically gave you the cliff notes, which is like, don't do nothing, you know, or like do very little, you know, pace yourself, take naps, like understand that, like, if you can, you know, be home before dark. That means you've got a very short period of time for which to be active in the world.
Shannon's not doing that right now.
No, I'm not. It's pretty dark out.
It is dark outside.
I'm having tea.
And he's at my house, drinking caffeine.
Yeah. My dream life.
We have lights on.
Very Western.
We're being lit from above. That's one cool feng shui side note. One cool feng shui thing is at night, not only dim the lights, but maybe put the lights down low.
Oh yeah, great idea.
Our ancestors, they had fires.
Right.
And so the light came from below them. And in the daytime, light came from above us. So it's kind of a trick to wind down in your nighttime rituals is turn the lights down low.
Except the shadows, you know, like welcome the shadows. Right? If you have a hearth, wherever you have a hearth in your family environment, it is that kind of place where you have like this container.
Shout out Master Wong who collected cast iron wood burning stoves and
Really?
had them in every room in his house
Mm,
because he was down with the hearth.
mm,
Master Wong kept the same fire for 30 years,
mhm.
or at least he said he did, but the same fire.
This is an analogy, to
Yeah,
the fire inside, right?
yeah.
So we have yang that we've been kind of storing a little bit here and there
Mm-hmm.
if we've done the autumn well, if we've actually been compliant with autumn, which is to store, and to edit what it is that we're storing, so that we only have something that's nourishing our essence and not something that's draining us, right? So the two main things in the 10th moon are to be sure to nourish our essence and avoid excess. Because if we have this like precious little gem that we're nourishing, then letting it out, into an environment that's saturated with yin means we don't get it back. Means that it can be threatened or diminished or depleted in some way, right? So it's really about preserving and conserving that precious resource, but not being stagnant. Right? We still want to circulate, like we still want to move, we still want to stretch, but we want to eat very, very well. Always a full belly, always a full belly, so you can sleep very well. You want to stretch and also move a bit, but not to the point of sweat. Like sweating
Mm-hmm.
is the indication that you're letting yang out. So if you sweat,
You're
like
letting
go
it
for a
go.
long run and you get sweaty, and then that wind hits you, you're depleting.
Right.
And in fact, like Ming was very clear, like if you're trying to maintain this because you are attempting to continue the training and the benefits that you gained in the spring and summer, you're actually doing the opposite. You're actually diminishing those benefits that you acquired over the spring and summer very easily.
Mm-hmm.
They're being blown off your body. You're being blown away. So there's all these bathing practices too, like strengthening the ways you can strengthen the Wei Qi, like dry brushing, and then different kind of rubbings you can do on a qigong basis, right, to kind of fortify and insulate. You want to insulate yang, right, within. That's why you eat so much food.
As we just did.
As we just did.
That's advice that Shannon is taking. Well, you brought up a point, and I really like this idea of slow but not stagnant.
Right.
And there's a qigong for that. And so we did it yesterday, and
I love this one. Actually.
Truth be told,
Really
today I'm actually okay with yesterday being missed because this is juicy in its own way.
Yeah,
it has a good flavor. But we're going to do the same qigong we did yesterday.
It's very good. Yeah.
And so we are going to do the harmony of heaven and earth, or harmony of fire and water, however you like to look at it. But in essence, I'm going to carry this big basin and do this seated. You can do it standing as well. But I want to generate this kind of circle shape around in my arms, and it's going to have me holding something, if you will. And what I'm going to do is just ever so slowly lift my arms. And as I lift my arms, I'm going to kind of rotate at the wrists, and my wrists will move, my arms will move, and I'll just continue up until I've kind of reached a zenith of sorts. And it's expressed as my hands and my arms, but it's also my chest and my head, and my hips drive forward. And if I'm standing, like I'll shift forward towards my toes, and then I'll slowly come back down. And yes, it's my arms and my hands, but it's also my hips and my knees. And I kind of sink into my heels, and I gradually sit back and settle into this lower basin once again, right? And so consider I just did that really, really fast, right? And so the idea is, my teacher in Wudang, brought him up again because he's a pig. He would do this every morning in the winter for 2 hours. 1 hour up, 1 hour down. And so you can imagine, I just did it really, really fast. But it's to that point of slow down. Just don't stop. Just don't stagnate.
Yeah.
But observably, if you saw him doing it, you'd get bored.
Right, right, right. If you're just
what's
passing
he
by, he's
doing?
like this, and then you pass by a little later, and he's like this.
Yeah,
Like it.
it's such gradual
Mhm,
progression, and yet because you go slow, there's so much data, right? There's so much information available. Because if I just go up and down, I don't learn anything about myself. But if I slowly, every strata of the spectrum has a different alignment, has a different quality, has a different tone that in effect we can learn from.
mhm.
So,
It reminds me there's so many different things you could say about this time. Basically, if you're thinking of enjoyment as all the sensations, the tea, the food, all that stuff is very good. But it's all kind of rooted in a certain kind of cosmology that has to do with being and doing. So we've made this transition and from away from doing, and now it's to the point where we're very close into being, right? So the being quality and doing, and the relationship between being and doing, is actually a very vibrant topic, in this cosmology. It's like it's sincerely like very rich, deep topic, and it's not easy to convey or to talk about because in our post-Protestant culture, like we're very concerned with doing, right? Doing, no problem, but being, we don't really understand the value of being. Being is a
one day, yeah, someday,
someday. I mean,
yeah.
maybe, like don't rush me. The interesting thing about being, the closest thing we get to being is this notion of source, meaning that if I retreat from doing to being, I expect to find something. I expect to find a source. And in that source, I actually I'm either clarifying, revitalizing, or purifying my inspiration. That's what Westerners expect. We expect to find something that's going to illuminate, your inspiration, so that you can be better at what? At doing, right? So we understand being through a conceptual model of doing, right? So because we're framing being in terms of doing, then it's all about conception. There's either some deity that meets us there, or some sort of like, conceptual meditation practice, or even you might try to put Tao there. Yeah, this tradition doesn't really do that. There's no point of reference in being. So, but that also means that there's no assessment, there's no value judgment, there's no sense in which you even understand that you've come into contact with being, because it has no point of reference. That's the whole point. So there is in some ways technically no purpose in going back to being, because that's what nature's not operating with a purpose or a goal. There was no beginning, and so there will be no end. So there can be no like purpose.
That's a trip, man.
It's a very interesting idea. So how does that relate to our relationship in the 10th moon? Well, the invitation is to draw us back from doing to being. So if your main point is, if you find yourself sitting around being like, what just happened? Like, it's okay. Like you're probably like kind of nuzzling up to your being nature, and not even knowing it, right? Because you're not going to. So this is the whole point of non-conceptual meditation, is to it's apophactic, meaning that it's like getting rid of things. The process of the world is daily increase. The process of the Tao is daily decrease. And daily decrease is to come to this place where there is, I don't know what is all that's there. So that's why they say in Wu Wei teaching that life is a whisper between your nature and nature itself. It's not like a big declaration or a gale. It's just this thing that you can hear sometimes here and there. So it's kind of like getting in and out of a bath. Sometimes you're in the bath. Other times you're like running from room to room because you're cold.
How to say you're a pig without saying you're a pig.
Yeah. point is that when you're going, when you're recessing back to these places of being, it's not just this. It's not just this sort of ephemeral experience of some kind. It's actually your body.
Yeah.
You know, like it is your embodiment is related to your being in a very big way, right? So, like all the sensations of your body come into play. You know, like food tastes amazing, or sleep is very good, or I'm very motivated to be naked with my partner. You know, there's very simple things that your body must do. You must breathe air, you must eat food, and you must sleep. And then beyond that, everything's kind of optional.
Extra credit.
Right. But enhanced, you know,
Yeah.
in your experience. So these kinds of going back in close with ourselves, which is the invitation whenever yin is pervading, to come in close to ourselves, is even though you can't get any productivity out of it, even though you can't, there's no point of reference, even though you don't even know you're there, it is the source of all enjoyment. It is the source of every joy you've ever had, is this place that you don't even know that you go back to all the time. You know, when you sleep, when you get up, when you have that moment, you know, of just looking out the window and just appreciating, you know, your life. And you feel this surge of gratitude and joy. You know, this is what the 10th moon actually, what's in the environment is this opportunity. It's just there, right? So there's nothing to take advantage of. If you don't understand what I'm saying, it really doesn't matter. Like at some point in time, you will find it just on your own. Like there's like Ming would often say, even all the teachings blew away tomorrow, you'll find them again, you know, because they're in you as a human being in this environment. All these teachings will be discovered again. And have been lost many times and rediscovered. Yeah. So you can't mess this one up. And that's what's so cool about Pig, is that you really can't mess it up.
That's got to be so relieving for a Western mind or an Abrahamic mindset.
Either that or really confusing.
Fair enough. Well, it's being as a concept in our culture. It feels like such a carrot in front of the cart, you know, because I'll be happy one day, I'll be successful one day, I'll be content one day, I'll be retired one day. And until then, I got to do all this stuff to be that. And so I hear the invitation is to just be okay.
It's already there.
Yeah, with being, and do what's in line with being, and have what's in line with being, as opposed to one day, someday.
There's a lot of advantage. There's a lot of nourishment in acceptance and tolerance. There's a ton of nourishment in both acceptance and tolerance of like your condition or the condition of other people. That's not good.
I just tasted it, and you know, sorry.
You're tasting it.
I'm tasting
Welcome
it.
to Pig.
Wow.
Oh my God. It's like, I feel like this is the first time I've had this tea. Yeah. So it's all sort of taken care of. Is generally the attitude of this tradition, is that it's self-resolving. So I think the only, you know, you can be terribly determined. This is a wood pig moon. Wood pig chi is very naive, easily deceived, but incredibly determined. So you could be like, but truth be told, it's also really looking forward to being relaxed, you know? So if you're basically also saying, you know what, I could do that, but I don't really want to. It seems like a lot of work. If you're having those kinds of feelings, like congratulations, you're in the 10th moon, you know? You're, you know, having some understanding of like what it is you don't want is just as good as like having an understanding of what you do want. And in fact, in our culture, it's probably better, you know, because oftentimes understanding what we do want gets tied up with desire. And then if you sort of tie or hitch your will to ambition, That's a very good way to deplete yourself, because there should be no ambition, like no ambition, like zero ambition.
That sounds like a pleasure explore.
It's a slave. Yeah, no ambition.
And that's distinct from apathetic,
Yeah,
right? Because apathy has kind of a defeated quality,
correct.
whereas no ambition could be a content quality.
Apathy is a destruction of your will. That's when so the E spirit, there are 5 spirits in the Chinese physiology of a human being, related to different organs and related to different levels of experience, because a human being is not one thing. A human being is a facet of things. It's a gem.
Right? Here we come circling back to what dominated yesterday.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time with this one. So I'm trying to be concise with this. So the E spirit is related to the water element, and so is greatly enhanced during this moon, especially this moon, is the E spirit. And the E spirit is related to your will. But if you've tied your will to ambition, then the chances of you becoming depleted, increase exponentially, because the sense of will from the E spirit is not about like some kind of a righteous fixation. The E spirit is about this kind of capacity to carry on, to continue. The E spirit is what you've inherited from your entire ancestral line. So it is like you get up in the morning and you work, kid. It's that, like, you get up and make it happen. Like, we all have these ancestral levels of ancestral support. And that is the kind of a continuation, the sense of like, I will make my contribution, in this line will continue. So it's that kind of vibe. So there's an inherent flexibility to it. It's not saying it has to continue like this or like nothing. It is to say that no matter what, things are going to, the sun will come up tomorrow. I can roll with the punches. We got no problem here. I got options. I'll just keep doing it. Man, it's not what I want, but like I can keep going, So that there's an inherent sort of flexibility of thought and feeling that comes with that, which is very emblematic of pig. Pig's like, the way I described a pig to my clients is that it's basically saying that, stretched out over a long enough period of time, things are looking up. Like maybe not right now, but like if I have like big mind, if I think downstream, things will be all right. I'll make it. I might be a slave right now, but I'm gonna get out of this, and I'm gonna have kids, and they're not going to be slaves. So there's always this vision of some sort of gradual improvement, or some sense of endurance, some sense of perseverance. And we have to be persevering in the 10th moon, because heaven and earth have separated. So we have to endure, we have to continue. And this will carry into the rat moon when we're talking about survival and how we knit together to make it happen, because things are getting tenser and things are getting darker, right? Mm-hmm. So at this point, when yin is developing and establishing itself, there's actually much more of an enjoyment feel to it. It's like sliding into bed, right before you get all warm and cozy. It's that kind of vibe of sliding, in and out of the bath, and like having deep gratitude and a sense of enjoyment for your life. And there's a lot of will. There's a will in that, that if you hitch that will to, this idea of growth or ambition, or it's, you can exhaust it, then it will depart. You can have your spirits depart. Not all of them, but like that one can depart. If it departs, fear. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it departs, life is suffering. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't do anything about it anyway. Right. Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of negative allegories to this notion of like, no problem. Like it's just one foot in front of the other. I got it. The other one is like, why bother? So if we're talking about apathy, mm-hmm. apathy is not will. It's a lack of will. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not a will to make it happen, a will to just be able to stand there and continue. Right. And so this is also where you get like a lot of babies being born in the summer, is because there's this urge to continue, right? And so that, when people, you already know. So there's that as well, which is also kind of a joyful expression of your ancestral heritage to continue, to keep it going, and sharing food with friends and people who are very intimate. So it's a good time for intimacy of all kinds, because there is this easy enjoyment, available that you shouldn't bother putting your finger on, just take it for granted. Take it for granted, like really appreciate and love your people. That's all you need to know. Like, we could have done this in 5 minutes. It's like bump, 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 make it very simple and love each other up. Because that's what we got.
Love it up, yeah. Right on. Well, this is definitely turning out to be way more concise than yesterday.
We kind of drifted yesterday.
Yeah, let's get into our good luck, bad lucks.
So I was thinking about that. When it comes to, so we're talking about the 12 earthly branches and their relationship to pig. I mean, I was thinking about, there's this lecture that Ming did about how each of the 12 earthly branches celebrates, and I think it's somewhat relevant here in some ways. In a dragon moon, in a dragon year, this pig moon's really brings to the surface, our hearts on our sleeve. And most of the earthly branches are okay with that. And a couple are not. A couple would be a little bit evasive, right? So we can talk about the most obvious one, which is a snake, is having to deal with everybody's hearts on their sleeve. It's kind of like nails on a chalkboard for them, where there's such a lack of discretion that they could get a little shell-shocked in some ways. So they're going to want to keep their circles tight. And then the other, same with roosters, but roosters, same with roosters, in terms of being very particular about how they spend their time with people. But joyfulness is available. No one's shut out of joy. There's just how they find it, how they show it, how they celebrate it is different, from one earthly branch to another. And then everybody's compound anyway. So you're maybe born in the year of the rooster, but you also have these other aspects as well, which represents your other pillars, right? So I know snakes that have a horse hour or a rabbit hour, and they're more available to what's available when it comes to pig. But there's some to be a little bit more conservative, like your oxen. So that trine of the ox, the rooster, and the snake would tend to be a little bit more conservative and tend to be a little bit more truncated, in terms of who they associate with. But that's not a problem for them. It's getting darker. I don't call these people, I call these people. And we make these distinctions. The one after that, the trine of the dragon, monkey, and dragon, monkey, and rat.
We're the cool ones.
Yeah, they're the ones that are free to squander. They're likely to be squandering. Let's put it that way. One, the rat will be squandering because they can't help it. So they're kind of pouring all over the details and making sure that they have all the resources that they need. And then whether or not their people have the resources they need, and they're sort of amping up to be ready for the rat moon. And then when it comes to monkeys, and dragons are fairly invincible in general. So if they have a wide body of friends, they can behave somewhat like a snake when they're not so available to all the hearts on the sleeves from people they don't really know that are projecting on them, right? So, shout out to all the dragons out there in that way. They are maybe being a bit more selective, and this would be a good time to do that so that they don't exhaust themselves. Very similar also with monkeys. Monkeys are very gregarious when they want to be, but it's also a good idea for them to pick their battles, pick their spots in terms of who they connect with. There's really no rush. In the rat moon, your networking abilities will just shine, right? So in the pig moon, it's kind of probably more appropriate to connect yourself with those people that you really have a lot of trust with.
Next moon will be good, huh? Dragon year, rat moon being a monkey.
A lot of potential. Yeah.
There's potential for, yeah.
I think that I've been wondering about this particular point. Will we have a short winter?
Yeah.
You know, because like right now we're dropping into it, but to some extent, don't expect it to last. I expect it to be a fairly short winter.
Yeah.
For a good number of people.
Yeah. Well,
because
spring festivals in January.
Yeah, spring festival comes. The new year comes early this year, and then you have the 11th and 12th moon are both fire moons, fire-based moons. So that causes tension, which will just stir things up. So it would be even harder to kind of keep your yang contained, which I still highly recommend, but you can do preparatory things, that'll make it feel like spring is coming sooner. So we can talk about that later. But yes, monkey has something to look forward to in the middle of winter. They do. Because it would be a lot of networking for monkeys. Same happening now for goats. And goats are networking as well in this moon to the extent that they feel comfortable with. I mean, it's no demand when it comes pigs make no demands. So
shout out Sheldon, shout out Mark Zangi. Where my goats at?
They just may be motivated. Hey, let's have people over. Like if they're kind of feeling that vibe, it's a good idea, for a pig, like dinner parties, small to intimate dinner parties in a pig moon would actually help lay groundwork for future projects. It's not really about making agreements and signing contracts. None of that should be done in a pig moon for anyone. It's really just about turning strangers into friends. So goats can do this this moon. They can turn strangers into friends. Also true of the other domestics, which would be pigs and rabbits. Although rabbits probably less inclined, they're a bit more discreet, kind of almost snakish. Their capacity to disappear this moon, especially if they're comfortable. Why would I get out of bed? Kind of vibe. I fully support the rabbits doing that. They've had some really difficult years.
Yeah.
So to have like a whole month of just like being in your pajamas all the time, if a rabbit can do that, I say go ahead.
Well, I don't think it'd be too hard convincing, assuming they got another body to shack up with.
Right. If they got everything they need, and things get delivered. Sweet. And then the pigs, pigs are basically in their own element at this point. It's very, very comfortable. I can speak from my own experience. It's like walking around in, cozy like hoodies and stuff all the time. And the only thing that pigs need to always be on the lookout for in their own moon is squandering, because they're not as invincible as a dragon or a monkey. Like they do have a soft underbelly. They can be deceived. They can forget things. That would be trouble for pigs in their own moon, is forgetting.
Give me that
things.
soft underbelly.
Yeah. We go, oh, I forgot to, there's already been a lot of that. So that is available for pigs in their own moon. It's like forgetfulness. Because it is a quality of the 10th moon. Forgetfulness is actually quite normal for everyone.
So then who's left? The horse, dog, tiger?
Horse, dog, and tiger. We'll stay with the dog. Very similar in the ways to some of the domestics. Dogs are really interesting because their love language is helping. And so this is a great moon for them, to be helping others, but also potential for them to be deceived.
Yeah.
And taken advantage of.
And maybe even help to their own fault, right?
Exactly. So they do need to pick their company wisely, so the kind of privacy aspect, sliding back to something like the rabbit, or even the rat, or the snake, to be just a little bit more selective. Think, quality, not quantity. And then everybody needs to look out for the tigers. Everybody needs to have a tiger friend, say hello, like let them know they're not alone.
Do tigers ever get it good? I mean, I think every year in Hong Kong, like people want to be born on like a tiger day or like a tiger moon. And so they'll have C-sections to force tiger flavor. And yet,
nobody's looking to be born in a tiger year.
yeah, I don't know too many happy tigers.
Yeah. It's that adventure bit,
Mhm.
They want a little bit of adventure, but they want to be able to have some stability. Like tiger's capacity for excessive adventure, is like right on par with a monkey. Right. But they're much more impulsive.
I get that.
In certain contexts,
Mhm.
that can be really supported, and in a lot of other contexts, it can be a detriment, Um, but in the 10th moon, um, okay, I'll put it like this: a lot of tigers have had some difficulty in the dragon year. Man, I've advised a number of tigers, being like, "Don't think you're a dragon, you're gonna get beat up. You don't think you can get beat up, but you can get beat up in a
and
dragon
it's
year."
hard to heal.
And yeah, and then
Yeah.
so they should be in accepting the black stripe, the orange and black stripe. They should accept their black stripe.
Mhm.
And when they do, they'll find that there's a lot of people there to help them, because in a pig moon, pigs and tigers get along great. So that means that in a pig moon, there's plenty of people that want to bring you food or like support you in what you need to do for yourself to restore. Because the spring is coming, but if you don't restore, if you don't take that kind of private time, if you don't embrace the black stripe, you won't have anything to spend. You'll need to get something from the environment to then spend, and then it takes a lot more out of you. So the whole idea about going in and guarding our yang qi, in nourishing our essence, is that we actually have something to move forward with, that we can bring out when the environment's right. But if we're constantly, drinking tons of coffee and bringing all that yang qi out to the surface, then we don't really have it. By the time we get to spring, we're tired. We're super tired. And then we're like waiting for the fresh stuff to arrive so we can eat that stuff and then go do things. And that's just a recipe for depletion and short life, according to this calendar. That's the idea. That's the cycle, right? So this is the time where this kind of forgetfulness and sliding back into being, it's, you can make an argument that it's actually it does support better doing, more engaged. The e-spirit basically gets to be nourished so that it, as a water element expression, can then build another dream. Like imagine another dream. You don't do that in spring. You do that in winter. So anyway, the horse.
Shout out horses.
Shout out horses. I mean,
take it easy.
Basically, you already know, like, it's possible to get very injured, because right around the corner is the rat moon, and that's when you can get really injured, and then you're not available for spring because you're trying to heal. So
they're the opposites.
The dearth of winter, like routine, and like actually taking days off. Work only 3 days instead of 6. That would be my advice for that. And I think that's all of them.
Yep, we covered them. What would Ming be up to?
We said last time, very simple, like probably some kind of small group teaching either food, cooking, or dream practice.
Yeah.
The dream practice.
Maybe even some like intimate astrology readings or something like that. And some bookings.
People were after him, boy. Like the kinds of work he did was really profound. He would there are many lectures where he would like kind of not really underscore. He would kind of not talked down, but kind of diminished a little bit this notion of shamanism.
Mhm.
But then his entire transmission was shamanic.
Yeah, and he would downplay the teacher-student relationship. He just wanted to be equals and brothers, and yet he's a
Right.
fucking teacher,
Right, but he
dude.
was a teacher. But he's still like, look at us,
Yeah.
still getting transmission. Like
Yeah,
it's still happening.
yeah,
But I get like his history. There's a lot of influence around that, and also the time in which he was coming up and all the things he saw. Can you imagine? Like Suzuki Roshi, like Trungpa. All the crazy amounts of projection that the American people put on those people, and
true.
that totally twisted the whole.
The Guru from
Oh my
Beatles
God,
era, yeah.
crazy. So
Hmm.
he lived through all that. So I could see towards the end he was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, not
Let's
a
just
cult.
hang out, cook food.
Yeah,
Like, I could see that.
I appreciate him for that.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, but no doubt, like the transmissions are still happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt for lots of people. So I try to like, get next to those people.
How about our hexagram? Shout out Connie.
Hey, Connie. One of the ones that kind of came to me was hexagram 63, which was before completion. I think is what it's called. So one of the last two, there's before completion, after completion, or after completion, before completion. And they basically talk about the same thing, which is once things are done, there's more to do, or things aren't done yet, don't get ahead of yourself, right? So those are the last two hexagrams of the entire book. So 63 has to do more with things are ending, but don't rush it. We're not like trying to reinvent the new thing already. So like enjoy the ending, like actually let the thing end.
That sounds dark. Huh?
Well,
Enjoy the end.
enjoy the end. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
whole point of the pig is like, yeah, the everybody's circling the drain. Like, we're all practicing dying like every day.
Mm.
So every time you go to sleep, that's your practice of dying. No problem. It's no problem. It's a recognition of the continuous nature of life, um, and that we're all immortal. Like, and nobody gets out alive, but nobody ever leaves. We're in a closed system. So that's the cosmological viewpoint, is we're in a closed system. So there's no transcendentalism in this. None. So you haven't got a chance of leaving.
Mm.
So that can actually either be, really, I'm stuck here, or it can be like, oh, cool, you can relax.
Mhm.
And I think that anybody who's like watching this, if you feel relaxed, if that makes you feel relaxed in some way, then I would say continue exploring what this cosmology has to offer. If it makes you
Mm.
panic, then you're carrying another view. And that view is like, no, that can't be true. Like, and it just sort of comes up almost like a antibody response.
Mhm.
That doesn't
Mhm.
sound right at all. Like, that's your view speaking. So it's a great time to kind of understand what your view is. Because again, heart's on the sleeve. So they're all coming to the surface. Your view is right, right on the surface of your experience. Cannot hide, especially in a wood pig moon. Very much heart on your sleeve
Mhm.
kind of vibe. So some people that's intolerable, kind of experience. And other people are like,
That's your
yeah,
whole identity.
feeling it. I'm feeling it.
Mm.
It's a good time to look into that,
Yeah.
and again, without any kind of no pressure to do any of it, because it's already happening. So, it's very interesting video to do this because I'm
Mhm.
like, there's no point in trying to take advantage or learn anything or, watch movies, hang with your
Mm.
friends, perfectly acceptable.
It's good
Be
permission.
generous in
Yeah.
all the ways you can be generous, even just a little bit of generosity. You don't have
Mm.
to like be Mother Teresa or nothing, but just like if somebody is hungry, you feed them,
Mhm.
period. Like they're really, you don't need to overthink it.
Yeah. And sometimes being generous is letting someone be generous with you.
Right.
Receiving is an act of generosity too.
I mean, I know that in my own particular experience on a personal level, like someone making dinner for me is not an easy thing to receive, like, and I had to sit back and be like, okay, I'm I'm here for it, like regardless of like I don't have to know why, I don't have to figure it all out in order to accept the blessing,
Mm.
right? I just have to be willing to accept the blessing. And it was delicious. Right? I can actually think about like my reaction or feel into my reaction and uh, sort of dissect my history if I'm so inclined to do so.
Mm.
But I can also just accept the blessing and allow that blessing to sort of change me in the subtle ways that it would without me knowing, without me conceptually like coming to a revelation or anything of that nature. I can actually just feel that kind of transmission and osmosis of it and just not try to track it. That's that kind of experience, as archaic as what I just said was, is really deeply available in the atmosphere right now. We're just like, okay, I'll just trust it.
Mm.
Even if you get betrayed, it's okay.
Mm.
Like the trusting of your experience is actually what's called for.
One last question, and it's not one to be answered, but something that we can give our viewers a heads up on is, what is our New Year talk going to look like? One thing for sure, I don't want to do another live. We tried to do a live this year and it messed up our recording, and we had a whole bunch of stuff go wrong with it. And so it'll likely be pre-recorded. You want to do another social event here, a little gathering?
Yeah, I'm always down for the gathering. Yeah.
Yeah. So now is a good time. If you're watching this, if you're in the area or plan to be in the area, send me an email, info@wudongwest.com. And let's sort out what it looks like to have you here for this.
I'd like to do it before the year actually starts this time.
Oh.
In the ox moon.
Okay.
Yeah, if possible.
Yeah. So what? Like early January?
Well,
Early
probably
mid?
like mid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mid, third week or something like that.
Okay. So maybe like full ox moon or waning ox moon?
Ooh.
What are we talking here? Figuring it out live, right? Because we're going to be talking full ox moon anyway.
Yeah. So that's on.
It's 2 moons from now.
So quick, right? Short winter.
Short winter. Yeah.
So the new year is Wednesday the 29th.
29th, yeah.
29th. So I think I was talking. Ooh. Wow. That would be cool.
It's what, 21st? 20th?
Well, I was, yeah, we can work it out. I mean, the 24th would be amazing. That's a Friday. Yeah. Yeah, right. Saturday, the 25th, which is right before it. Be cool.
If we did a Friday, that could be a nice evening affair. I just really enjoyed how when we did Rabbit Moon, we didn't do it until Red Lantern.
Right.
And then this one, we kind of knocked it out right around, but we wanted the dust to settle a little bit before you spoke to it. And then now you actually want to get it out early. And it's interesting for snake.
Thinking about, yeah, that's the thing about the snake.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah, it could, and the lineup on the moons themselves, just a spoiler alert, is not particularly gentle. So the first moon, second moon, third moon, fourth moon are pretty in
jarring.
Your face. Yeah, pretty jarring. So I'm thinking of it as like yeah, exactly. Just being like, okay, this is what we're dealing with, and like getting, just allowing the material to come out in a time when people are actually available to receive it.
Yeah.
Because I think once the spring actually hits, people might not have the bandwidth, depending on how they conduct themselves during the winter, of course.
That kind of lands too in the conversation of dragon so big that snake ear is just a continuation of, it's just like the tail of.
Yeah. Yeah. And that does track, especially when you're thinking about the snake this year being a wood snake.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert, I actually recommend everybody to look at their chart because I do feel like a lot of the experiences that we're going to be having in a snake year are going to be more related to our charts than because a snake in itself actually points, the chi of snake actually points to previous causes, this idea of previous causes.
You guys need to know that that's probably the hardest sale or hardest pitch you get from Shane. It's like, oh, maybe look at your chart.
Maybe you should look at your chart.
It's a way to say he's open for booking.
I don't know. No, talk to him.
So then the other thing, last year we had a number of debacles. One was, of course, the live that, really broke down amidst. And so we ended up having to provide an audio for last year. And we just happened to have it because one of my students recorded it. Right. So we really got saved last year with content. And then beyond that, there was a conversation of, not to throw brother under the bus, but there was a conversation of...
True. I didn't make the booklet. Guilty. I had technical issues.
And it did get made. And so I don't want to make any promises on that this year, because it was something... Yeah, we kind of set ourselves up for that and it didn't follow through. So
it was a missed opportunity, but I think that sometimes that's actually what's required.
Yeah, speaking of like yesterday.
Right. We've done this twice now.
Yeah. Well, this one was good. Yeah. We talked about same stuff and then all new stuff. And I think this was a good episode. Yeah. We got our hour in. That's where we're at. All right, guys. See you next month.
Bye.